Hello, welcome back to Drinking by My Shelf. My name is Emma and I am going to talk about things in thrillers that I absolutely hate. These are my 3 biggest pet peeves which ruin what is one of my favourite genres. I love thrillers. It doesn't matter how outlandish or ridiculous they get. I love them. They're a lot of fun. So it takes a lot to make me really irritated at a thriller. And these are the 3 things that will do exactly that. The first one I have actually mentioned in 2 videos recently, so sorry to the super fans who've been watching all of the videos, because you have heard this before, but it's actually my biggest one, so I had to say it again. I hate it in thrillers where the character knows more than the reader and keeps telling the reader that. So the whole element of suspense. How is my battery dead already? I just charged it. 1 second. Okay, I'm back, and let's add when my battery runs out halfway through filming to the list of things that I hate. What was I saying? I hate it in thrillers when all of the suspense rides on the fact that there is some big secret that the character knows, the narrator of the book knows, but won't tell us, and keeps reminding us that we don't know it yet. It gets so boring. So when every 3 seconds they refer to that was before that night, or that was when everything changed, talking about some past event that's just building up and we know at some point will get revealed to us. But the thing is, when you build it up that much, whatever it is going to be disappointing. I have never read a book like that, or not since the very first few thrillers I read, where the surprise was at all decent when it came. Because it doesn't matter how technically clever that plot point might be, I'm so bored at that point that it's just like, thank God you finally told me what it is. I've only been reading this book just to get to the point where you tell me, and now you've told me, I'm disappointed and cross. And it's even worse when it comes, it wasn't even that interesting. So an example of that would be something like Truly Madly Guilty by Liane Moriarty, which is all just constantly building up to us finding out what happened at this barbecue. We know that there was this, was it a barbecue? We know that there was this get together of 2 families and that something catastrophic happened. And when we find out, I did make a video recently that was spoiling thrillers for you, so I'm not going to spoil it here, but if you want to know, I'll link that below and you can go see it. When we find out, what actually happened is pretty small. It's not even like it's this big thing and it's disappointing because we had it built up, but at least we finally know. It's just not even a big deal in the first place, which makes you feel like you wasted your life reading the first part of that book. I can't stand that at all. I would much rather I prefer it if the reader knows something that the characters don't, because then you feel like you're shouting at the page wanting to tell them. Or sometimes the character can know more than you because the character turns out to be unreliable. That's quite a good twist when it turns out they were unreliable. But that's because it comes as a surprise. They haven't been constantly telling you the whole way through that they have a secret. Or sometimes something like Claire Mackintosh, she does these great twists where actually it just shows that you, the reader, had made an assumption. And the twist is to kind of pull the rug out from you and say, actually, you haven't been reading what you thought you were reading, but that was your fault because you made that assumption. We haven't just been lying to you. Those are super surprising and fun. There's so many ways to make surprises fun. There's so many ways to make characters have secrets that later come out in an exciting way. But when they just keep telling me that there is a secret, that there was a big event that happened, I'm so bored, and I will just put that book down. Because I used to read them just to be like, for the love of God, I need to know what the secret was. And now I've been disappointed by it so many times. I've realised even if it's a clever and exciting secret, I won't care, because by the time it comes out, I would have been bored to death of being hit over the head with the knowledge there is some big secret. So that is my number 1 pet peeve in thrillers. Please stop doing this. It is not an interesting way to tell a story. Thing number 2 that really annoys me is when thrillers give you too much of the main character's thought process when they're changing their mind back and forth. Because of course, with thrillers, with any kind of exciting action-packed story, you are going to get twists and turns. You think one thing and then the other, and that's fine. That's fun when you as the reader are doing that. I don't need to read the narrator going through that process. That is very boring to me. When several times within a few pages you see them figure something out and it describes their whole thought process and then be like, it must have been person A who did it. and then they go through the whole process and think, it must have been person B. And each time it's revealed as this big revelation, but you're just reading them have it as a revelation. I would rather just experience it myself. Just give me the clues, give me the information I need, and then trust me as a reader to figure out what you're trying to tell me. You don't need to lay out my entire thought process for me by making it the narrator's thought process and then making me read it, because that doesn't leave any space left for me to do any thinking. I can't think of a specific example of this, but it happens quite a lot. Or sometimes if the story is told from the perspective of a detective, we see them like go back and forth figuring each thing out. And like, sure, I need a bit of help with it because I'm not a detective. Sometimes I need that moment of things slotting into place. But if it's going to be back and forth 500 times in a chapter, I don't need to watch it slot into place each and every time. Just give me a good enough clue that I'm going to think I figured it out, so that I get to be shocked when it keeps changing, rather than just have to watch someone else be shocked and feel nothing for myself. And finally, the third thing that I hate in a thriller, and again, this happens quite a lot, is it's all about that moment when the villain is revealed. So there's a subsection of this which actually doesn't irritate me too much, even though it is a bit of a cliche trope, which is that when the villain is revealed, they always then have their speech where they tell you about their master plan. And that's always a little bit silly and feels very unnatural to me, but I don't hate it because it is actually quite fun, and when it's done well, it can be believable that they just wanted to show off about their plan, I guess. And sometimes you sort of need that recap for you to realise quite how clever all the twists were. So I don't hate that. What I do hate is when, in that moment of reveal, the character entirely changes so that they bear absolutely no relation to the person you've seen them be up until that point. Because A, it makes it not clever. Like, I like my twists to surprise me and for me not to have guessed them, but the second they're revealed, for me to be like, oh, of course. And then if you look back, you find all these clues where I could have guessed it, but I just didn't. I don't like when the twist just comes out of absolutely nowhere. There's no way in hell I ever would have guessed it, because that character didn't have any second of doubt planted in them ever at all, because then you just don't believe them as the villain. I've got some examples that I could say for this, but I've just realised it would be spoilers if I told you them, so I'm not going to say them, but I'm sure you guys can think of some examples, some quite famous examples. It's basically like the character who turns out to be the villain is sort of revealed to be this cartoon evil mastermind, because this whole time they were pretending to be somebody totally harmless, which of course villains do, but this whole time they were quite close to the character and they had this strong personality that you believed in, and then suddenly, once the veil is lifted, it's like cartoon evil laugh, I fooled you, you thought I was nice this whole time, and suddenly their new personality when they're talking doesn't make any sense. There are definitely ways to make somebody who you thought was nice turn out to be the villain. Of course there are. That's a classic twist that is really good fun in a thriller. But it's only really fun to read when their evil version of themselves is reminiscent of their original version of themselves. So you can see that you misread all the signs, all the things you thought they were doing to be nice, you actually just misread and they had this plan all along, and that's quite scary to think that you trusted somebody foolishly. But when it's just somebody who just like legit was a nice character, and then the whole premise is just on the fact that they're so good at faking being a nice character and that they did it just to trick you, I just don't find that an interesting twist. I hope that I phrased that well enough, because I know I'm saying that there are times when it works and times when it doesn't, and without giving examples, I hope that's kind of clear enough what I mean. But yeah, leave me comments if you hate any of these three things as much as I do. I literally will just put a book down if it starts to resemble any of these three things. I've read enough thrillers now to know I don't have to put up with that shit. So give this video a thumbs up if you also hate those things, and leave me a comment with your pet peeves. What can you not stand to read in thrillers? And hit that subscribe button below, because I post new videos twice every week. All of my social media and everything is listed below, and I will see you next time. Bye!